Maplewood was a nice, tranquil community. Everyone knew their neighbors, and life was peaceful. Emily Johnson moved into a little cottage on Elm Street in search of peace and quiet to write her works. Emily's desk faced a large window from which she could see the street and the house across from her. This house was old and frightening, with ivy growing everywhere and paint flaking. It appeared that it had not been cared for in years. Emily was working late one night when she saw something peculiar. A shadow came in the window of the old house. It seems that someone was standing there watching her. She blinked and the shadow had vanished. Emily wondered whether she was just weary and seeing things. But the next night she saw the shadow again. This time, it continued longer. It seemed to be looking directly at her. Emily began to feel worried. She asked her neighbors about the house, and they all said the same thing. No one had lived there in years. The previous owners, an elderly couple, had died, and the house had remained unoccupied ever since. But Emily recognized what she saw. Every night, a shadow appeared in the window and moved from room to room. Emily could not sleep. She got preoccupied with figuring out who or what was within that mansion. One night, she resolved to find out for herself. She took a torch and her phone and crossed the street to the ancient house. The front door creaked as she pushed it open, and she entered. The house was dark and smelled ancient. Dust had blanketed everything. Emily's illumination flickered, causing shadows to dance across the walls. She walked down a long hallway and up the creaky stairs to the second floor. When she got to the top, she noticed the window where the shadow had been. The room was empty, but for some ancient furniture covered in sheets. Emily approached the window and stared out at her own house across the street. Then she saw a dirty mirror on the wall. In the mirror, she noticed the shadow standing just behind her. Emily shouted and turned around, but no one was present. She ran out of the house and returned to her own. She tried to tell herself that it was all in her mind, but she couldn't stop thinking about what she had seen. A few days later, an older woman named Mrs. Thompson paid Emily a visit. She lived down the road and told Emily a secret. Margaret Wells, an artist, once lived at the house before inexplicably disappearing. Some individuals claimed her ghost was still haunting the house. Emily wants to assist. She returned to the old house with the photograph Mrs. Thompson had given her. It depicted Margaret Wells standing at the window. Emily placed the photo on the ledge and spoke aloud, hoping Margaret's spirit would hear her. As she turned to go, she felt a cool air and noticed the photo tumbled to the floor. Emily sensed Margaret wanted to tell her something. She picked up the photo and noticed the message on the back. "Set me free." This lettering had never been there before. Emily saw this as a sign. She returned home with the snapshot and began writing on her laptop. She transformed Margaret Wells' story into a novel, detailing her life and enigmatic disappearance. After the book was published, a woman visited Emily's home. She presented herself as Margaret's niece. She claimed that after reading the book, she grasped her aunt's mystery and discovered certain files and evidence that could help explain her absence. Margaret's dilemma had been solved, and her spirit was now at rest. Emily never saw that shadow again. She continued to write, eventually becoming a well-known author. And the old house, which remained intact, no longer appeared eerie or haunted. It felt as if a lost soul had finally found peace.